must say, when I looked at these numbers, I was shocked. Yo, what's going on, friends, and welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, your host Jan. As always, I do hope you're doing well, friends. I really do hope that, and welcome back to Chelsea News, which of course is the daily series here on the channel where I reflect on everything, or some things, the most interesting things on what's being said about Chelsea, give you my thoughts on it, but as always, more importantly, ask for yours in today's video. We're going to talk about Maresca switching agents. Why are you doing that, Brev? Why? Have we solved the Axel Disasi problem? I mean, that's good. Raheem Sterling might be the Rubik's Cube of all transfers to solve, especially considering his refusal to go to the Italian and German champions. But maybe Disasi sorted, we'll speak about that as well. And also, I want to do some stat comparison, because we love that here on Football Therapy, some really illuminating stuff. With players like Pedro Neto, Estevao Willian, who else? Enzo Fernandez. Yeah, strap yourselves in for that, that's very impressive. And if we have time, we might talk loosely about the Ajax game. At time of recording, and I haven't watched the pre-match press conference, we can speak about some players that may or may not feature. I don't think I'm going to build a lineup per se for it, but we might talk, you and me, we might just talk casually about who might feature in that home game against what is a very poor Ajax side. Right, so thanks for joining me. It's going to be a great video. I can feel it in my bones and my gonads. Sorry. But if you are a returning viewer and you're yet to subscribe, hey, it's time to jump on board because it's 199,000, nearly 200. We are very much closing in on 200k and I'm very grateful. So thank you to everyone who's subscribed, who stays subscribed, and welcome to new subscribers. Hit that sub button and then the bell notifications icon. Yeah? Thank you. Right, let's start off with the Enzo Maresca agent switch story and jump over to the Telegraph. Matt Law writes the following. Chelsea manager Enzo Maresca has joined Jorge Mendes's agency as he attempts to prove himself among the top coaches in European football. Maresca has joined Mendes's stable of managers that includes former Chelsea manager Mourinho, Unai Emery, Marco Silva, and Nuno Espirito Santo. Chelsea do remain in control of Maresca's future. He's under contract till 2029, and the club also have the option to extend the deal by a further year. As first revealed by Telegraph Sport, Chelsea sporting directors Winstanley and Stewart, together with recruitment chiefs Joe Shields and Sam Jewell, all signed new contracts in the summer that run an extra year than Maresca's to 2031. They will soon be joined, of course, by former Liverpool recruitment expert Dave Fallows. Yeah, I reacted to the Dave Fallows story in yesterday's video or the video before. Another recruitment guy, potentially very exciting because he's built a title-winning team at Liverpool, the team that went on to win the Premier League and indeed the Champions League, which many Chelsea fans are seeing as a positive sign. Maybe this geezer's going to come in and sign a couple of experienced players to marshal all the talented potential children on the pitch. You know, we can hope. Chelsea this season reiterated their support for Maresca and the plan to leave any assessment of his performance until the end of the season, which was always the idea after they first appointed him last summer. Were he to leave Stamford Bridge at any point of his current contract, then Maresca would be in a good position to land another leading job in Europe. Chelsea's initial target for the season is to qualify for the Champions League again and enjoy a good run in the Cups, although that could change later this season. The article goes on to remind us how Maresca's profile has risen in the last, 18 months or so. Of course, he won the championship with Leicester, but his time at Chelsea has been broadly successful in what can only be described as quite a difficult job. Now, you might say, it's Chelsea, you got good facilities, you got loads of talented players, but it is a historically young team, and let's be real, it must be tough to manage in the conditions of the Chelsea hierarchy that is still kind of settling and finding its way to all work together harmoniously. Yeah, I got through that word. Chelsea fans might have preferences for other managers, but you need to think about the sort of parameters they'll be working in this Chelsea job. And I think broadly Maresca's done well there. I think him getting onto this agency is probably quite a positive thing for him. Like, it looks good to be on the same, thing as Unai, the agency as Unai Emery and Mourinho, and Marco Silva's got, he's really well regarded in the game. So if something does happen, he's got a super agency, they'll go and get him another job. Of course, we've already heard about other teams looking at Enzo Maresca. Juventus are interested in the Italian, so should he leave Chelsea for one reason or another? I mean, managers leaving Chelsea, other than Graham Potter in recent memory, seem to always do all right because they're like, well, Chelsea's crazy, we're not going to judge you on being sacked there. And indeed, they go and manage elsewhere and do rather well. Often. That's been the case throughout the Roman Abramovich era. And indeed, you'd probably say recently as well. Of course, Tuchel went to go and manage Bayern Munich. It's not a bad job to go and get. Perhaps he didn't do excellent work there, but it's a good job to go and get. I think the outlier probably is Graham Potter, who's just been appointed the Sweden manager. But I think we'd all agree that was a mistake, that appointment. Anyway, Maresca's got a new agency. So whether that's to help him negotiate better contracts at Chelsea, or should he part ways with Chelsea after the 2-year review, he reckons probably that will get him a better job. But yeah, it will be a 2-year review. It's next summer. They'll look at his body of work over 24 months. And go, look, highs, lows, are you going to change the way you work here because we see this as a weakness? No? Fine, maybe you're going to go then, or we really like the way you've developed, and yeah, let's keep going. That is the 2-year review. We'll of course react to stories when we get there. Right, let's hop aboard football.london to learn a little bit more about Axel Disasi. Jake Stokes writes the following: Chelsea appear to have finally found a new club for Axel Disasi, the 27-year-old defender who the Blues signed from Monaco for 38.5 million quid, wow, in the summer of 2023. Of course, he faces an uncertain future at Stamford Bridge. He was shipped out on loan to Villa, of course, in a January transfer window. He only made 10 appearances, and of course he played centre-back and right-back for Unai Emery's side. Despite Disasi's best efforts, Villa decided not to choose to take him on permanently. Football.London understands that numerous English top-flight clubs were interested in signing Disasi, including Bournemouth, who held talks for a loan move, and in the end, of course, Chelsea were unable to find a club for him. However, a potential suitor has reportedly emerged, and according to Italian outlet Juve.live, Juventus could target the Frenchman as they look to bring in cover for Gleison Bremer, who's missed a lot of the season due to ACL. Interesting. Juventus, I don't know if they still have that allure, but for a long time, if you were a centre-back, that was a cool place to go. You know, I think De Ligt chose them over Bayern Munich before he went to Bayern. But there was, nearly 10 years ago now, do you remember when Antonio Conte, he of course managed Juventus for a long time, and then he obviously managed Italy before coming to Chelsea. Many of you will remember. I remember Conte in the sort of mid-2010s making defenders cool again, because it became all about like number 10s attacking midfielders, you know, attacking fullbacks and wingers and attackers generally. But suddenly, the Bonucci, Barzagli, Chiellini, back three of both Juventus and of course then Italy that Conte had at Juventus and Italy. And there was something cool about it. I remember like Bonucci coming off the plane with like those aviator sunglasses, and it was like, being a centre-back was cool again. Still have a Catenaccio had returned, but it was sort of becoming in vogue again, and Juventus was like, if you're a really good centre-back, go to Juventus, because that's where you're like, you know, really appreciated. Maybe that's not the vibe anymore. This was 10 years ago now. I do feel like I'm getting old. But if you are a defender, Juventus should be an alluring destination. I mean, it should be an alluring destination anyway. It's Juventus, yeah? So, you know, from having failed moves to Bournemouth, with the greatest of respect to them, who of course are playing really, really well under a good manager in the best league in the world, if you've got an opportunity to go to Juve as a 27-year-old, I don't know if Disasi's got kids or whatever, but he should very much take that move and help us out. Of course, it leaves just Raheem Sterling as the only problem to find a solution to, which was, it just seems impossible. Like, you know, we've reflected relatively recently here on the channel, he rejected moves to Napoli and Bayern Munich, Raheem Sterling. If you're rejecting those moves, what do you want? Like, what are you expecting? Are you expecting Liverpool to just sign you and give you a massive contract? Or, you know, you won't go back to Man City. You know, you've been to Arsenal. What are you hoping for here, Raheem? Yeah? Are you hoping to go to Fulham but keep being paid 300k a week? I don't know. Like, it blows my mind, really. I find it very intriguing, confusing, and rather upsetting. But Disasi, the solution could be found. Let me know your thoughts. comment down below, and let's get into the fun part of the video and look at some statistics. Right, before I pull this up on the screen, a little bit of context. I'm using understat.com to do statistical comparisons of certain players, and I wanted to start off with Pedro Neto and Estevao Willian. Of course, Pedro Neto has broadly been playing very well for Chelsea since the end of last season, going into the Club World Cup, and even if he hasn't, been incredible this year so far, he's been reliable and of course had a very good game against Nottingham Forest, goal and assist. But Estevao is the exciting wild card. Now, I understand why Pedro Neto starts over him, and I think if you asked a lot of Chelsea fans, they wouldn't be upset about that. Pedro Neto is a trusted operator, can play on both sides. He's played false nine for us. He's very tactically disciplined, intelligent. His work rate is incredible, and his understanding of the English game is incredible as well. So as a more senior player at the ripe old age of 25 years old, you can understand why Maresca turns to him. But take a look at this understat comparison on the screen now between Pedro Neto and Estevao. As you can see, it's pretty wild. Pedro Neto being represented in the green and Estevao in the blue. Of course, Neto has a much bigger sample size with 603 minutes. Estevao doesn't even have half of that. But as you can see, the stats per 90 is pretty incredible. They both have 0.3 goals per 90. Again, very, very limited sample size from Estevao. But all the other stats is pretty darn wild. Only key passes is where Pedro Neto trumps Estevao, and some of these numbers that the young Brazilian winger is putting up. The fact how he puts over 3 shots per 90, his expected assists, his expected goals per 90 is really, really high. It is very, very exciting. To me, this demonstrates in terms of attack, Estevao helps the attack so much more. But at the same time, I understand why these sort of metrics and style of play you'd want to utilise as a closer. The Premier League is ruthless, man. It shows no mercy. Sure, if you've got a player that can come on and just frantically generate all this attacking value, great. But if that comes at, the cost of the structure breaking and, essentially the opposition getting in behind and scoring, it can be very, very, hard to balance. So even though with those numbers I've shown you, Estevao is absolutely dominating, I could still totally understand, and dare I say, endorse Enzo Maresca starting Pedro Neto and then just bring Estevao off the bench. It's tempting to, do 60-30, 60-30. But of course, certain games you want to see Estevao be given 90 minutes. But of course, he's not the biggest. And I'm not saying he's really, really brittle and weak, because we've seen him be physical, but he's not tactically disciplined yet. He does have the whole rush of blood. Silly, got the silly yellow card as well for time wasting, needless. But he's a boy. He's 18 years old. I think he will be a starter for Chelsea probably sooner rather than later, because the numbers will become undeniable. And, if you can get him tracking back and defending well, you just need him on the pitch. And it is very exciting because we will see a time where Cole Palmer and Estevao Willian start regularly together, swapping positions, that sort of right pocket to right wing, and it's going to be incredible. I do feel a little bit bad for Pedro Neto because that stat kind of digs him out a little bit, but it's more because he's being, working hard. His runs aren't necessarily always being met with the right pass. He's playing out of position, but and he has found a bit of form, Neto, but it just shows you how incredible the attacking and creative metrics are from Estevao. Wow. Right, let's move on to another comparison. Right. For reference, I'm about to show you some stats for Enzo Fernandez for this season. Of course, Chelsea's vice-captain. He's been absent the last game or so, but he's playing in an attacking 8 box crashing role. It's peculiar because he hasn't necessarily won everyone over. I think a lot of people understand how important he is as a leader. His running stats, he leads everyone for Chelsea. I think I said this before, because he's not a fast player, it's hard to sort of see, but he covers the most ground than any other player on average every single game, so he works very hard. He's been playing ostensibly as kind of a number 10 attacking midfielder, so I just wanted to pick, I thought, right, who am I going to pick to do a comparison with? And I was thinking Andre Santos. There's not enough minutes, in the team, and there wasn't really anyone that was that fair that I thought I could compare to in our team, so I thought, right, let's pick another player. And for a bit of fun, I thought Florian Wirtz. Now, I know he hasn't scored or assisted, but these numbers show a lot of expected stuff and other metrics as well. And yes, Wirtz is more of an attacking, floating number 10, But take a look at this comparison anyway, because he's the second most expensive player in Premier League history. He was the record before Isak, so take a look at this comparison. As you can see, Enzo Fernandez represented in the green and Florian Wirtz in the blue. They both have a decent sample size of minutes, and although unsurprisingly Florian Wirtz does have a lot of key passes per 90, to be fair to him, his teammates haven't finished chances. Look at the shape of Enzo Fernandez's spider graph there. Very balanced indeed. Goals per 90, 0.43 in the Premier League this season. If a striker has that, they'll be sort of very happy. That's nearly a goal every other game. You know, that's positive. Of course, he's slightly performing his expected goals per 90, 0.56. Should he be meeting that, that's over a goal every other game, which would be an elite striker return. But of course, he's working very hard. He's strong in the XG build-up, the XG chain. He's matching per 90 Florian Wirtz's numbers, but he's getting the goals and assists to go with it. So I wanted to do this comparison because people, he's not seeming like a glamorous player, Enzo Fernandez. He's a bit, he's a leader, he pops up with goals, he works hard, but actually his creative numbers are very strong too. So I wanted to show you guys that. I think it was important to do some comparisons. I'll of course keep doing this kind of stuff here on the channel. I really enjoy looking at the statistical comparisons, and loads of you guys do as well apparently, so I'm going to keep doing it because that's what you guys want to see. Right, let's wrap up the video and talk a little bit about the Ajax game. Now, I'm not going to do a predicted lineup because I haven't heard Maresca speak yet, but it is at home and it is against an Ajax team that are in poor form themselves. I mean, it's not a vintage Ajax team, and of course they're coming to our backyard in southwest London, so Chelsea will be heavy favourites to win this game. Of course, there's a few talking points like, with João Pedro suspended for this game, it's an absolute banker that Mark Yu starts as a striker. I mean, if Tyreek George starts as a striker, we won't be that surprised knowing Enzo Maresca, but I think many Chelsea fans will be very disappointed should that be the case. But we hope to see Mark Yu, and then maybe taken off at 60 minutes and wrapped up for the Sunderland game, you know, the Premier League, because it looks like he could be very useful. It's something I'm speaking about a lot. Other than that, I suppose you could see your Facundo Buonanottes, you could, you know, see your Garnacho starting, trying to get him a goal and some rotation at the back. Maybe a Wesley Fofana start. Maybe Philip Jorgensen starting in goal, because he will need some games. And this is probably one of those games, with the greatest of respect to Ajax, who are like a European giant, they're not in the best shape. I mean, the last time we saw Jorgensen, he was very shaky against Lincoln. So maybe I'm a little bit concerned about that. But yeah, we can see some real good rotation in here. Of course, Malo Gusto will play because he's suspended to be in the Prem. We'll see some good rotation there. I don't want to speculate too much because Maresca could do anything really, but I do expect a good Chelsea win by a winning margin of at least 2 goals. So we'll see what happens, and of course I'll react to that game as and when. But other than English, but other than that, let me know your thoughts. Please do comment down below. As always, thank you for your support. Thank you for liking and subscribing and dropping dem hype points, fam. Other than that, I hope to see you back here very soon. Take care. Peace.
You ain't so tough with that bad boy tuck. I'ma get it how I'm living, I'ma walk the walk. Outline my lines, I rap through thought. Body bag the verse, outlined in chalk. In my life seen trouble, hustle on the double. Silence on the trigger like my pick got a muzzle. Yo, chick like to guzzle, bad boy stay in trouble. I only love this paper, sorry I don't. I laugh me, baby.